Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we are going to be diving in to the new point changes. So, there's been a new balanced data slate. We're talking about the militarum field manual, so point increases only, but it is still the balance change that we have been waiting for. So, I actually thought it was going to come out next week, but it's coming out today, which is great. And let us see what they have done to the Eldar. So I have not seen this yet. This is totally new to me. I went in this fresh, didn't watch any videos on it. I know that probably there's some YouTube channels out there that have already covered this. I haven't. I want to give you my honest, you know, clear, unadulterated opinions on what I think the changes mean, if any, right? Because I don't even know if the Eldar got anything changed. Okay, so I'm going to not read through all this, and I'm definitely not going to watch the meta watch because I think it's mostly worthless. I think what they say is not always the truth. We'll look at the numbers and we'll take a look at that. Necrons obviously probably got nerfs. Adeptus Custodes probably got, or not Custodes, excuse me, mechanicus or whatever, probably got buffs. Black Templars probably got nerfs. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. And we will not only look at the Eldar, but we will also look at some of the other factions as well to kind of see where they're at. Okay, but because Eldar are the superior species, we're going to be going right to the Eldar. I'm seeing a lot of green from these initial factions. Okay, moment of truth. Moment of truth. Let's zoom in real quick so we can get a good look at this. I don't see any green or red yet. Green! Shining Spears. We got Shining Spears reduced to 100 points. Probably still not good enough. Probably still not good enough. I think they need to be about 90, but that's better. That means, people who are running them for fun, who love Shining Spears, get a little points decrease on them, so that's great. Nothing yet. Okay, now I just want to make the comment that I'm already seeing several units that probably should have gotten point decreases not changing, so that doesn't really bode well for the rest of it. Shining Spears were probably the worst unit in the entire index, and they got a points decrease. So maybe we won't see anything yet. We'll see. Oh, Storm Guardians, guys. Storm Guardians. 100 points. So they got reduced by 15 points. I don't know why. Because they were so good anyway. I honestly don't know. But now they're 100 points. I think this is probably just to bring them in line, maybe with more in line with Guardian Defenders, maybe. But who knows? Oh, Striking Scorpions and support weapons. So, Striking Scorpions got a 10-point decrease. I like what they're doing with these little arrows. Makes it much more clear what's getting changed. I do like the Striking Scorpion buff. I'm not sure it was the most needed buff in the entire index, but it is what it is. Support weapons go up to 135. Now, sad face for all of you guys running 3 support weapons out there, D-cannons. It's a shame. I think there were a lot of competitive players running these things, and GW just decided, hey, we're just going to increase them by 10 points, because why not? And they're really fragile and stuff like that. Now, that's something I didn't see coming. I didn't think they were going to increase them even more. And I think there's just probably more competitive options out there. D-cannons are very strong, but they're very fragile. And, we are definitely we're still seeing a lot of vehicles, but we're definitely seeing less vehicles. And I just think D-cannons might be on their way out competitively in most lists, but we'll see about that. Swooping Hawks also got a points increase. I totally saw this coming. I saw this coming last data slate, actually, but they didn't do it. That's because I really do think they're an 80-point unit. They have great objective, power, being able to score secondary objectives very early. They have pretty good weapons with lethal hits. Yeah, I think Swooping Hawks are an 80-point unit for sure. Only got increased by 5 points. Not a big deal. They're still really good. I think people are still going to take them in triplicate. So there's no changes there. It's not like they're 100 points or something ridiculous. Fuegan, 130 points. I did call this. I saw this coming. Unfortunately, it's just, he's just really strong for 115 points. I think 130 points is probably more where he should be at. to be honest, and I'm okay with this change in general. Looks like Guardian Defenders got a buff. They also got reduced to 100 points, so I guess, yeah, just right in line with Storm Guardians there, which is kind of what I maybe thought. So look at that. Pretty cool. You know, do I think this makes Guardian Defenders better than, say, Dire Avengers? Probably. I would say that they're better. I like them more at this point. Just on a points basis, they're not going to do as much damage against, light infantry, but they're pretty comparable in damage for the points. Howling Banshees also got a buff. Oh my god. They got reduced by 15 points a unit, so that's really good. This is like what I was saying where they should be. I was saying that they should be 70 points a unit. So, a lot of people out there are going to be a little bit happy about this, which means, your Banshees, yeah, they're not going to do a ton of damage on charge like they did last edition, but they can at least function as a good screening unit, or a good unit to kind of toss in strategic reserve to come out later, maybe rapid ingress or something like that. That's how I'm using them. I'm using them mostly as a, kind of mobile screen with rapid ingress, or, kind of to, sneak some stuff in later in the game, turns 3, turns 4, and 5. And they're very good at it for, 85 points from what I found. But, they don't trade well. And I think this is going to make them trade much better against targets that they're good against. So I actually think this is a great change. Are they going to become meta? No, right? But you might see, one unit of Howling Banshees popping up here and there as a screen to screen out melee units, stuff like that. So I actually like that change. I'm very happy about that. Again, I'm not sure why the Striking Scorpions got reduced to 65. Maybe it has something to do with their new kit. GW wants to sell more Striking Scorpions. I don't know. I thought they were good before, I just, again, I don't see the purpose of this, but I'll take it. Especially since they increase support weapons. So I'll take the Striking Scorpion change. I run Striking Scorpions occasionally. And there's actually an argument now, guys, to take Striking Scorpions instead of Rangers, because Rangers, being at 55 points, were taken because they were a cheap screen. And Striking Scorpions are now more durable than Rangers, having a 3+ armor save. And they're good in combat. So instead of just tying something up, you can actually do some damage to something at the same time. And you can threaten certain things. So I think Striking Scorpions being less points is very good. It means they're good at just infiltrating, and they can also, it's not as bad as if you don't get first turn, right? What else has changed? Nothing. So, big disappointment on Warlock Skyrunners not getting reduced. I think I would have traded, guys, all of this stuff. Well, minus nerfs. I would have, if they nerfed these things and they just buffed the Warlock Conclaves and stuff like that, I'd have been fine with that. I know some players wouldn't be, but these guys are so expensive. I just don't see them ever, coming into play. And at least Storm Guardians, Striking Scorpions, and Guardians were seeing people's tables, right? So, Dead of Night, I'm sorry, buddy. They didn't get buffed. I think actually GW might have seen that video where me and Dead of Night were talking about a Warlock Skyrunner Conclave army, and they just said, "Oh, nope, we can't do that because if we reduce the points, they're going to be the next meta or something." So there you go. It's our fault. Blame me. Blame Dead of Night for making this unit stay the same points. Okay, now we haven't looked at Imperial armor yet, and I'm kind of either one or two things are going to happen. Nothing's going to change because GW and Imperial armor don't like change it that often, or there's going to be heavy nerfs to things like Shadow Specters and possibly the Hornet. Maybe not so much the Hornet, but maybe the Skothak Wraith Knight will see a huge nerf to it, right? So let's just, because both of those units have seen a lot of competitive play, so let's just slowly scroll. So it looks like, Hornet's good. Lynx is good. Of course, the Nightwing is good, but they should have reduced that thing. Oh! A nerf on Shadow Specters, guys. So Shadow Specters are nerfed by whopping 10 points per 5, which is pretty significant when you think about people running them in, 3-man units, or, in triplicate, I mean, 3 5-man units. That kind of is a shame. I really liked Shadow Specters. I thought they were one of the units that were really keeping us extremely competitive in tournaments because of their move, shoot, move, and, very quality damage for the cost. This means that although they're still good and they're still very usable and they can still do some awesome things, like I've outlined in several of my previous videos, that they can score things like capture enemy outposts first turn with the right combination of units and shooting, can actually get these guys onto an enemy objective and destroy the unit on it turn 1, And a lot of opponents will leave a transport with, troops in it on an objective turn 1. They'll deploy it there so that it doesn't get, nothing happens to it, doesn't get stolen. But there's a way to basically get around this with Shadow Specters. They're one of the only units that can do it, and they are nerfed. They are more points now. I think you may start to see people kind of shying away from Shadow Specters, and in a second, I'm going to talk about possible replacements to Shadow Specters that you might see. Now, the Wraith Knight, the Skothak Wraith Knight, no nerfs. Stays the same cost, which is great. Unfortunately, like I said in my last video, I think Forge World units, when the codex drops, are on their way out. What I would highly recommend to everybody out there wanting to run a Skothak Wraith Knight is to simply proxy a regular Wraith Knight for it. And maybe even buy the Inferno Lances on eBay or something if you can find them, or convert them, something, magnetize them, and then just kind of use a regular Wraith Knight as the Skothak. Because it's probably going the way of the dodo. It's probably going to go to Legends, as well as pretty much everything on Forge World. And this is something I really didn't mention in the last video, probably. I foresee everything except for the Revenant Titan and the Phantom Titan going to Legends, unfortunately. So I know I got a lot of sad faces on that video, and I'm sorry, but I'd rather tell you guys the truth than sugarcoat things and say, oh guys, it's going to be fine, and just inhale a shitload of copium with the community, and then, be devastated when we lose all these things. What happened to the orcs was a tragedy. I think that's probably going to happen to us too. Let's just brace for it and prepare for it. And then that way, if it doesn't happen, it's a celebration, right? We can celebrate life, and we can definitely have a, huge party. Maybe I'll even do a live stream if that happens. If they don't take Shadow Specters out, if they don't take all these things out into Legends, I'm calling it right now. Huge celebration live stream. Okay. Oh. Oh. The Phoenix Gem got nerfed, guys, by 10 points. That really sucks. Okay, so I know the Phoenix Gem is a strong enhancement, but let's be real, there's other strong enhancements in the game. I wonder if they changed or nerfed any of the other enhancements from other factions, because I know Space Marines have a version of Phoenix Gem that was cheaper than the Phoenix Gem, and it basically was the same thing. So if they didn't nerf that, but they nerfed this, that's going to kind of irritate me. But we'll see. We're going to check the other faction. So, okay. Here are my initial thoughts on this. I think GW made an attempt. They swung at it, at least, of internally balancing the codex, but I don't think they hit all the right places. And I certainly don't think they targeted some of the right units. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, Storm Guardians is a good call. Guardian Defenders is a good call. And I agree with the Defenders. I don't know if I agree with the Storm Guardians, but I'll take it. I was running them at 115, and they were doing great. Now they're even better. You're going to see more Storm Guardians in competitive play. Striking Scorpions, I really didn't see the need to buff them by 10 points a unit. But whatever. I thought they were strong as is, but now they're just even better. So I think you're going to see more of them in competitive play. Howling Banshees you might see showing up. I think they trade much better at 70 points. They're more usable for sure, and they can fit in your lists better, especially with all these other point increases and stuff like that. You're going to have to find alternatives to some of these units at least. And I think Howling Banshees, they might not exactly fit in there, but if you're going for a full swap of what I'm going to suggest next, they might be an option. Now, what I'm going to suggest next, obviously Swooping Hawks are still an auto-include, nothing changed there. You're only paying an extra 15 points per army for them. Support weapons are something you might start trying to cycle out for something else. The Falcon is only 140 points, and guess what? Fire Dragons did not get nerfed. They escaped nerfs. This was something I thought might see a 5-point increase. They did not. So we're still in business with Fire Dragons. The only thing that got nerfed was Fuego. So support weapons can be swapped out with Falcons. I know support weapons have indirect fire, but they're also really, really fragile. They die to basically one last cannon shot. So, it's just one of those things where they're probably not worth the points anymore. I would argue that they were probably worth about 125 under the right circumstances in the correct build. But at 135, if you're running 3 of them, you really need to run multiples too to like really exert that level of control on the battlefield. And that's an extra 30 points in your list. And, that's a lot. So kind of have to start making choices, making cuts. Shining Spears doesn't change a thing. I think just people who had fun running them are going to love it, and then people who didn't run them are still not going to run them. Shroud Runners never got touched. Now, here's what I think is going to change with people's builds. Okay? I still think Fuegan's an auto-include. Nothing changed there, guys. 15 points, they're going to cut something else in the list. Support weapons may be going down. Swooping Hawks are still auto-include. You may see a couple Scorpions or Banshees in lists now. You'll probably see a little bit more Storm Guardians now that people can fit them in. I don't think you see Guardian Defenders still, just to be honest with you guys. I think they're great, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think you see them in really competitive lists because of the fact that Fate dice are so bad right now. They're really not helpful. And I think when you have a unit that says, oh, you randomly roll a dice every turn, a lot of competitive players are going to look at that and they're going to be like, I could roll really well and get a 6, or I could roll the 1 and get nothing. And people aren't going to risk that every turn. Now, the one thing I will say is if they change the rule of Guardian Defenders and they said, add a Fate dice result of 6 to your pool, I think every single list would take at least 1 unit of Guardian Defenders because that's awesome. Add a 6 to your pool instead of a 1, or at least a 5 or something like that. Like add a 5 to your pool. I think people would take it, but because it's so risky, it's so swingy, people don't really go for it. I think that Wind Riders are going to be taken way more. They're still 80 points, and what do they compete with? They compete with Shadow Specters for damage against Marine equivalent enemies and against hordes. Wind Riders, happen to be very good at killing orcs. The new Orc Codex is out. They're also really good at killing both 4 wound models with toughness 6 or 2 wound models with, toughness 5 or toughness 4. So Wind Riders are extremely effective damage. They don't have the move shoot move, but now you're paying an extra 25 points for the privilege of the move shoot move. And again, I think people maybe take 1 Shadow Spectre, but maybe not 2, maybe not 3, right? They maybe don't spam them in their list as much because that's going to be a lot more points. So I do see Shadow Specters possibly getting replaced in the meta by Wind Riders, and I talked about this a little bit in a previous video, and I think this is going to come true. Other than that, nothing's changed. Dark Reapers are staying the same. I think as an army, we're still going to be very aspect heavy. I actually think even more so. I think the single unit of Rangers you see in people's lists might actually just be tried, at least attempted, to be replaced with Striking Scorpions. The D6 move of the Rangers is good, but I think when you factor in the extra durability of the Striking Scorpions plus their combat potential, I think you have a better unit overall for 65 points. At 75, you can definitely argue that, yeah, Rangers are where it's at for that sacrificial kind of pawn, but yeah, I think Striking Scorpions are it. Phantasm also just makes more sense on Striking Scorpions, so they might be a better target for that as well. People are still going to take the Phoenix Gem. This changes nothing. They're just going to make cuts in their list elsewhere. The Phoenix Gem is such a powerful ability, especially on an Autarch Wayleaper or something like that. I think GW noticed this, and instead of nerfing the Autarch Wayleaper again, they just nerfed the Phoenix Gem, which is like, okay, you know? Like, in case you wanted to run the Wayleaper with something else. Now, the other consideration for the Wayleaper is now a little bit more on the side of Fate's Messenger. It's kind of like a lesser Phoenix Gem because you can make a save with it, so you can potentially, turn a kill into something that's not going to be a kill with Fate's Messenger. But I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the Fate's Messenger Autarch Wayleaper. I just think if you're going to shave points, just run them as 115. Don't even bother with it. So, by the way, guys, you are going to be spending 115 points for an Autarch Wayleaper now. The other thing I'm thinking, guys, is especially on, WTC terrain and stuff, the regular Autarch at 75 points with a Phoenix Gem might actually be better than running this really expensive Autarch Wayleaper. It might be worth considering to shave some points, and you have seen the Autarch in regular games too. So, or not regular games, tournament games, has made an appearance here and there in lists. But, Lone Op is still very strong, and I still think you'll see that model. Yeah, no changes to Wraith Lords. I think, again, Wraith Lords probably need to be about 140 to be competitive. Wraith Blades are probably needing to be about 160. Wraithguard are probably, because of all the nerfs, need to be like 180. But, I think there's more to be done, I think is my point here. And GW was very light touch with the Eldar. They didn't want them to become good again, so they just changed a couple things. They nerfed our most competitive units that are seen in pretty much every tournament list or most tournament lists, and they buffed units that they thought were not seen very often in tournament lists. Namely, Storm Guardians, Striking Scorpions, Guardian Defenders, and Howling Banshees. We have seen Striking Scorpions and Storm Guardians, though, which was weird. What we really haven't seen is, again, Warlock Skyrunner Conclaves and Warlock Conclaves, so that is unfortunate. Anyway, so now having gone over the Eldar, let's take a look at the other factions and see what happened. And see if we have some better, cost-effective matchups. Let's look at Sisters of Battle, Adepta Sororitas. Okay, so Arcoflagellants are up. I'm not surprised one bit. I don't know how many points they increased by, but, they were really strong. They were pretty OP. They could pretty much go into any unit and just wipe it out with so many attacks, except really tough units like tanks and monsters they weren't good against, but any infantry models, pretty much dead. Battle Sister Squad, 100 points, and okay, so now it's kind of making more sense as to why Guardian Defenders got reduced, because you look at Battle Sisters and they're 100 points, so it's like, why am I paying more points for Guardian Defenders when they're more fragile, they don't do as much damage, etc. Although I do think the damage is comparable here. Celestian Sacrosancts are down. The Demon Fuge is down. Crusaders, at least a 2 model unit, is up. And the reason that is because, just for you guys out there, Crusaders were being used for really cheap secondary scoring. You take 2 models for like, what was it, 25 points before? And it was absolutely ridiculous. So now they're saying, no, actually that was stupid. You have to pay more points for that. I don't really think that matters. Death Cult Assassins, same thing here. If you want to do secondary objectives with them, gonna have to pay a little more points. I think that's a smart change, but I think the smarter change would actually be to say you don't even have the option of taking 2 models. You just have to go to 4 models. I think that would have been smarter, but whatever. There it is. What else got buffed? Mortifiers. I don't really know what a mortifier is, actually. I have a buddy who plays this battle, started him in 9th edition. I played a few games against him. I don't think he has those. But, if anybody knows what these are, tell me in the comments. I'll probably look them up later anyway, but I'm curious. They look to be some sort of suit or something like that, some Paragon War suit alternative, but okay, the Paragons didn't change. Penitent Engines got decreased in points. I remember these being kind of like bad, right? Because people were just taking the Paragons. So this is interesting, right? Penitent Engines got a buff. I think they're pretty fragile too, but they're cool. Of course, the Triumph of St. Catherine got increased. She was way too good. She was in every competitive list. Of course, she's going to see an increase. And the Blade of St. Eleanor was way too overpowered, too. It's giving a bunch of stats to your model that was just making it ridiculous. So, yeah, 25 points is probably fair. So, yeah, Sisters were a little too strong. They got toned down a little bit, and some of the terrible units, and it looks like some of the worst units in the list, got points buffs, which is how you should do it. I'm not a Sisters player, but this looks pretty fair to me. I don't know. If anyone plays Sisters, let me know in the comments. They obviously didn't change their army ability or anything, so I think they're still going to be good. Custodes, a lot of buffs. Who would have known? They do have a new codex, though, so that may be just the codex points that they're bringing down, which makes sense. Let's look at Alaris Custodian. 6 models for 390, exactly the same as the Index guys, and they don't have the 4+, feel no pain against dev wounds and mortal wounds. So, I think it's just, obviously, they were like, well, we did nerf them. GW said, yeah, we did nerf Custodes, so we should bring them down in points. And that's all that's happening here, right? They're just bringing down all the units in points because they got nerfed with the ability. So you'll probably see a little bit more Custodes out there, but you're probably not going to see Custodes being this, like, powerhouse objective faction who's just super good at scoring primaries, because they do have weaknesses, right? Which is dev wounds now. Dev wounds will still kill them. Adeptus Mechanicus got some buffs. Let's just see. I'm not like the biggest Adeptus Mechanicus fan. It looks like the robots and the Carafin destroyers and Doomcrawlers. So, like, some of the vehicles and some of the key pieces got decreased. The Rust Stalkers got decreased a little bit. Rangers got decreased. I don't know by how much. But, if anybody plays Adeptus Mechanicus out there, let me know if this is a realistic and good buff, or is it just a band-aid on a much bigger issue? And I would probably have to lean towards it's probably just a band-aid is what it looks like to me, because, the people who do play Adeptus Mechanicus are just going to have to buy more expensive models. And it doesn't seem the rules changed, so maybe this is just a band-aid and it's not legitimate, but who knows? Okay, and that's Adeptus Titanicus. We can, of course, the best faction in the game. We already went over them. Agents of the Imperium got looks like they got nerfed. Calidus Assassin got nerfed to 100 points. I think it was, 80 points before? That was basically an auto-include in a lot of competitive lists. That's nerfed. Inquisitorial Acolytes, just a really cheap objective caddy. That got nerfed. And then Lord Inquisitor Kyrus Draxus got nerfed. I'm trying to remember what... I think that's the Eldar lover one. I think that's the one that loves the Eldar. So, of course, the Eldar got nerfed a little bit, and they have to nerf the Eldar lover as well. Just for fucks. Astra Militarum. Interesting. So let's look at this. Rough Riders got a buff. They needed it. Beasts, they're not in a good place right now. At least Rough Riders aren't. Basilisk got increased. Bravo. They needed to. It was at 135 points, way too cheap. Bulgrins got increased. They were, I guess, too tough. You had a lot of players, Imperial Guard players, running these in multiples because they were so good. Kassergans got increased, of course, because they were OP for the cost. And, double order coming out of reserve and all that nonsense. The Hydra got it decreased in points. So did the Hellhound. That's good. I think those were kind of lagging behind. The Manticore got increased again because it was too good. I mean, people were complaining about, I had a video on indirect fire that I released, and I said, indirect fire is a problem because it's very uninteractive, and especially if you look at armies like Imperial Guard, they can just sit behind ruins with like 3 or 4 3 basilisks and like 3 manticores. They can just eliminate like all your scoring units in like a single turn. And people were like, "Oh, that's what should be. Look at how many points I'm spending on this." And it's like, yeah, you're spending a lot of points on it, but now I can't score secondary objectives. So you're going to just win. That's just what happens. And because you have cheap infantry, you can really capitalize. But anyway, that got nerfed. The Leman Russes got buffed in response, which is great. That's a great internal balance move. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, all of these got reduced by 10 points, which is good. Tempestus Scions got reduced, which is also good. So I think guard players have some stuff to be happy about. And I think they have some stuff, the Basilisk play and the Bulgrins, Basilisks and Bulgrins and, all the kind of like units that were kind of problematic are nerfed. But the units that are the tried and true Imperial Guard units, like the Leman Russes, the Tempestus Scions and stuff, are going to be buffed. So that's cool. It's awesome. Also, I love Hellhound, so that's good that they saw a points decrease. Okay. Oh, of course, and the Medusa carriage battery also got nerfed because that was another indirect fire. God, that thing was so cheap. I can't believe it. It was probably 115 points. Something ridiculous, right? So cheap, but yeah, that got nerfed as well. So, do I think it is going to stop Imperial Guard players from running massive artillery spam? No. I still think Imperial Guard players are going to run double Basilisk standard, and then if they are a little bit more on the, try hard side, they might run, three Basilisks. But anyway, I don't think it changes much. Black Templars, oh, just heavy nerfs, right? They were doing too good. Oh, yes. Okay, so the Gladiator, the Lancer, and all those variants got nerfed. They got increased in points. They should have. They were just too good. The Impulsor got nerfed. And guys, if you're wondering why these things are getting nerfed from specifically Black Templars, it's because they all had a 6-up Feel No Pain. And like, Feel No Pain on vehicles is really good, especially with other stratagems like Armor of Contempt and Smoke. So that's why Crusader squads got nerfed for the small unit, but it looks like we're unchanged for the big units. And then the Primaris Sword Brethren got nerfed, which is good because they were way too good. Essentially, they were super OP. They hit really hard, both range and melee. They had good options for both. They were very durable, especially in Black Templars, and I think it's good that they got the nerf. So there we go, Black Templars. Blood Angels. Well, they got some buffs. Death Company Intercessors got buffed. Death Company Dreadnought got buffed. Mephiston got buffed. Man, I remember the days when Mephiston was like the OP Lord of Cheese back in 5th edition, and now it's funny that he's getting buffed here. Death Company Marines got a nerf. Death Company Marines with jump packs also got a nerf. So for those of you wondering why Death Company specifically is getting nerfed, it's because they're extremely strong. What the heck? Oh, I'm sorry, that was a street sweeper. I don't know if you guys heard that in the background, but a street sweeper just passed right by my house. God, they're loud. Okay, so we have Death Company Marines getting nerfs because they hit way too hard. Got the Sanguinary Priest with jump pack getting nerfed because, again, that was a really good unit to go with Death Company. Lamartez, oh my gosh, I think we were just talking about this in the Discord like a week ago, how OP Lamartez with, Death Company, all that could be. I think somebody mentioned that they charged a unit of 5 of these guys with Lamartez, jumped into a unit of Wraithblades, and basically just cut it down almost the whole unit, which is insane. Sanguinary Priest got nerfed, but Sanguinary Guard got buffed. So it looks like these guys are kind of, kind of in the center of nerfs and buffs. They're not like super OP, but there's some units that are way stronger than others. Is this Street Sweeper back? I'm sorry, guys. I have noise canceling on, but that's so loud that even I can hear it. So like with the headphones on, so I know you guys can probably hear something like that. Okay, Blood Angels, Chaos Demons. Did they get even one change here? Nope. Interesting. Okay, I know some people were hoping that some of the horrors would get points decreases. I guess not. I guess GW just says, fuck demons. Chaos Knights, no changes there. Interesting. I guess they just hate chaos. Oh, here we go. Chaos Space Marines. This is why they didn't change anything, because they didn't want to upset the balance too much. Because they gave Chaos Space Marines a bunch of buffs, bunch of points decreases across the board, which is probably what should have happened in the beginning, but they were doing super well in the beginning, so they didn't want to do it. So yeah, just cultists are cheaper, ciphers cheaper, legionaries are cheaper. Yeah, I mean, Mauler Fiend is cheaper. I know a certain member of the Discord will be happy that that happened. I think he just bought one. Possessed, Raptors. Yeah, I mean, makes sense to me. Bunch of point decreases for an army that's pretty much at the lowest win rate possible, along with Adeptus Mechanicus. Dark Angels got buffs, which, made sense. Let's see, Inner Circle Companions. Yeah, these guys needed buffs. I don't think they were that good. I think they came out too expensive, right? Yeah, Lionel Johnson. Alright, so they got some buffs on their Terminator units. Death Guard, one thing got changed, which is the Death Guard Hellbrute. Alright, I guess no one was running that thing, so that got a points decrease. Otherwise unchanged. They're really good, by the way. Death Guard are good right now. Death Watch. Oh, man. This is like the faction that really needed some buffs, and they have absolutely nothing. No changes at all. Absolute. Oh, God. Absolutely terrible. I think they might even just do away with Death Watch. I'm sorry for those people who play Death Watch out there, but it just seems to me like they just don't care about Death Watch at all. They're letting the faction languish and die so that they can replace it with something else, possibly. That's sad. Jukari, let's see. Any buffs here? Nope. Nothing. Nothing. And they should have gotten some more buffs. Hellions need to be decreased. You know? Yeah, nothing. Racks, I don't even think are worth their points really. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Okay. So Dark Eldar didn't really get changed at all. I know they got a big change last time, but they didn't get changed this time. Gene Stealers Colts got a little bit of a buff. Aberrants got a buff, which are the big guys. They probably needed it. Goliath Rock Grinders, the tank, the Goliath. So the trucks got a little bit of a buff because they weren't being used a lot. Achilles Ridge Runners, I think those are the bikes, if I'm not mistaken, or trikes or trucks, well, something like that. So they got buffed too. Okay, interesting. Grey Knights got some nerfs and buffs. Librarian and Tech Marine got a nerf. Nemesis Dread Knight, of course, got nerfed because people were running like 3 of them in every list. So they got a nerf. And then Inceptor squads, Purgation squads, Purifier squads, and Strike squads all got buffs. So that's cool. I think probably needed. They're really expensive, 5 models for 130. Jeez. Grey Knights are one of those really precision marine armies, which is cool. I think Grey Knights are one of the marine armies I actually like more than some of the others. I think they're a little bit more unique, which is why I respect them a little bit more for Bonkai. Imperial Knights, nothing. Leagues of Votan, look at that. 2 buffs. Uther the Destined, which, Fat Dwarf, which is cool. I love him. And then Hearthkin Warriors. 100, look at that, 100 points. So it looks like they're just kind of trying to reduce all the single wound infantry models to around 100 points, and they're going to try to balance them around that 100 point level, which I respect. I think 10-man infantry units that are your battle line units, you try to balance them around 100 points. I think that's good. Okay. Necron's just a bunch of nerfs. All the Satans got nerfed by probably at least 10 to 20 points. Probably more, actually, but I'm not sure how many points they got nerfed by, but they got nerfed. Monolith, I think, was 350. Now it's 375. Significant nerf. Again, yeah, all the Catans got nerfed. Plasmancer got nerfed. We saw that coming. Chronomancer got nerfed. We saw that coming. Technomancer got nerfed by a lot with the rates. Right? That was the one that goes with the rates. Got nerfed by, I think, 20 points. I'm not mistaken, or 15. Illuminator Xeris got nerfed, and yeah, he was what was causing the Mortals to get so good. Immortals are nerfed on top of that. Man, Necron players are not happy. But we do have some buffs, and we'll go into those buffs in a second. Hypercrypt Legion, the Dimensional Overseer, got nerfed, so I think that was the one where they could deep strike an additional unit per turn. That got nerfed. Yeah, that was really powerful. Let's see what got buffed. Catacomb Command Barge. Death Marks, basically the units that weren't used. Flayed Ones. Yay, Flayed Ones got buffed. Scorpic Destroyers. Scorpic Lord. Yeah, it's because the detachment with all the Scorpic Destroyers and stuff, like that detachment was considered one of the worst ones. So like all these units are getting buffs to compensate for that. Yeah, Ophidian destroyers. So just a bunch of destroyers are getting buffs. They didn't buff the Locust heavy destroyers because we have been seeing a few of those in competitive play here and there. Okay, cool. So Necrons got the nerf they deserved. The nerf they deserved. Codex Orcs. Feel kind of sorry for this, but this is just going to be a bunch of from the initial listed points in the Orcs Codex. This is what it's going down to. So yeah, it makes sense. Gretchen are cheaper, Gorkanaut's cheaper, Hunter, a bunch of stuff's cheaper. Squig Hog boys are more expensive though. My God, for some reason. Trucks are more expensive. I think that's probably warranted considering Bully Boys are probably going to be one of the best attachments. Mech guns are more expensive. I actually thought this unit got moved to Legends for some reason. I don't know why, but I guess that's me being a fool. Pain Boss and Pain Boy are down. That's going to be really good. Flash kits are down. But here's the thing. Flash kits, I mean, no one's going to run those anymore because there's no more Captain Badrook. So good luck running flash kits if there's no Badrook to join them. That's what I see. Death Copters are... Oh, they're Death Copters. They're less expensive. I don't know. I don't know too much about orcs, but I just know that the loss of 15 data sheets is like killer for a lot of players, so they really just don't like that at all. That's sad. Ludas. So, between you and me, I actually think Ludas are pretty good. I know they hit on fives and stuff, but I think they're not bad for 100 points for 10 of them. I mean, that's pretty good to me. What about your regular boys? Let's take a look at your regular boys. Beast Snaga boys, 105 points. It's a little expensive, but they are toughness 5 models. Let's just see your normal boys. Here we go, boys. 10 models for 85. There we go. Pretty cheap. Pretty cheap. Okay. So they're going to be good. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt these guys are going to be good. I just think that, all the lost data sheets is going to suck. All their detachment bonuses and costs are right here. Okay, finally, Codex Space Marines, a big... Look at how long that is, guys. My God. Okay, so Assault Intercessors with jump packs got reduced to 80 points from 85, I think. I thought these guys were already good. I'm surprised they're getting reduced. The Brutalis Dreadnought is getting reduced. I do see this. It was a little bit expensive. I think it was 170. So putting it down to 160 is pretty good. I think it just makes it a little bit more competitive because it wasn't that competitive before. You got so this was a common tactic for Marines, Eliminator Squad. You bring up the Incursor. Your squad of eliminators shoots, and then they jump back in the Incursor, and then they shoot again from the firing deck. So GW said, well, we can't nerf the combo, so we're going to increase the points of the unit. Probably not by that much for the unit to stop being used, but still cool. Hellblasters got a points decrease. They were the plasma ones. I think this is pretty realistic. Plasma Hellblasters just weren't that good, and I think, less points is good. These guys don't trade good at all, so it's a pretty good thing. Incursors also got a points decrease, which is good for them. What else? Nothing. Infiltrators are still 100 points a unit. Oh, here we go. Terminator Squad is reduced because, all these other factions are coming out with different Terminators, so they thought, we'll reduce the standard Terminators in points. That makes sense. Vindicators reduced in points. Not sure why it was 175 or so expensive, but there it is. Like, should it be more expensive than, a Lehman Russ battle tank? Probably not. Storm Raven gunship got nerfed, thank goodness. So that horrible Dark Angels Storm Raven build is probably gonna be a lot harder to pull off. Tactical Squad got decreased in points. I think they were, 150 before? Now they're 140. Tactical Squads are good. I know a guy that's going to be happy about that. He runs a bunch of them. Terminator Assault Squad is down as well. Iron Storm Spearhead got nerfed. The two things that got nerfed were the Adepta of the Homicide and the Master of the War Machine. Okay, so I don't know what upgrade it was, but one of these upgrades in one of these basically gave a free revive to the model, and It didn't get nerfed, so that's kind of annoying. That's a little frustrating that our Phoenix Gem got nerfed, but that didn't get nerfed for Marines. God, I can't remember for the life of me what that enhancement was called. If anyone knows what that enhancement is called and the points level of it, let me know in the comments because, you're definitely not paying 35. There's not a single thing in here that's 35 points, so I know you're not paying that expensive for it. So, yeah. And that's okay. Space Wolves, they got a couple of buffs here and there. Wolf Guard Terminators and Wolf Scouts got points decreases. Tau, nothing. Same. It's the index, yeah. Tau index. They're coming out with a codex, so they're probably not going to change anything now. Index Thousand Suns, Hellbrute, Mauler Fiend. Yeah, it looks like Hellbrute's got reduced across the board. Demon Princes, Cultists, Scarab Occult Terminators. Stuff that basically wasn't being run by Thousand Suns is buffed. However, their enhancements, some of them have been increased. So, they were doing really well because their enhancements were super cheap and also their Magnus to Red was really good and stuff like that. So that's still, these guys are still going to be good, but they're not going to be as good, and maybe some players will want to swap out some things in their list. Tyranids got a bunch of buffs too. Looks like they're bigger bugs, or they're medium-sized bugs. So Tyranid Warriors, Tyrant Guard, Psychophage, Gargoyles, stuff like that, Hive Guard. All good. I think Tyranids are still going to probably suffer, but the fact that they can take more units means it's a little bit better for them. They're more of a swarm. World Eaters got buffs because they weren't doing. I mean, they were doing okay, but it was hard to win games with them because they were just too straightforward, too easy to counter. Excuse me. And that's it. That's everything. So, based on what I've seen, it just looks like some of the things we saw with the Eldar are going to be straight up because they're rebalancing the entire game around a new kind of points level with some things like Guardians, for example, and Storm Guardians. Why did they get buffed? Well, because they're balancing every single 10-man unit of basic troops around 100 points. That's going to be their new kind of thing. They're going to put them at 100 points and kind of balance them that way against other factions. Why did they balance Howling Banshees and Striking Scorpions? Because they gave buffs to Space Marine Intercessor, Assault, Jump Pack Marines, right? So they made them 80 points for 5. So Howling Banshees are not as good as them. So they're 70 points, right? If Howling Banshees get the charge, they can probably kill quite a few of them. Probably kill about 3 of them, and then the other 2 strike back, killing 2 Howling Banshees. So the Howling Banshees actually still come out on top, whether they charge or not. However, just keep in mind that when the Assault Intercessors charge in, they have an ability to deal mortal wounds, which means that they will still win, even though Howling Banshees have fights first. So that is something to keep in mind with that unit. Striking Scorpions are cheaper now as well. So I think really realistically those two units were balanced around that. And that's it. I think really, if you're looking at the Eldar, I think we're still going to be very good. Competitively, our most competitive lists have taken an approximate hit of about 15, 30, 40 points if they're not running Shadow Specters, and if they're running Shadow Specters, it's 70 points. So that means that the top lists are going to lose at least one unit or have to swap out some units in order to stay at the top levels. And again, I predict that's just going to be a Shadow Specter swap. If you're running 3 of these, then now you're going to run one of those units and you're going to run 2 Wind Riders to kind of make up for it. And again, Wind Riders, I know people aren't excited for them or whatever, but they're really good damage for the cost. 80 points for 3 Shuriken Cannons. Shuriken Cannons are really good against mech. Marine equivalents are really good against orcs. And, they do consistent damage. They're 24-inch range, so, they're good, right? They don't have the move, shoot, move, but they're still good. And that's it, guys. I think, obviously, Swooping Hawks are fine, and that's it. And something that didn't get nerfed was Revrain and Quins. And Quins, the troop, if I just locate that, that's still 75 points for 5. And for 11 models, it's 165. I still think you're going to see people run 11 models with Yvrain and Wave Serpent, or just, 12 models with Yvrain and just go whole hog and run the Visarch in there too. You're still going to see people running that because that's also a really good counter against orcs. So something a lot of you guys may have kind of also been thinking about, not just me, but other Eldar players, is, what is a really good unit against orcs? Harlequins, because they have a +1 to wound on charge. Yvrain has anti-infantry. The Vizarch has fights first he gives his unit. So if a unit of boys charges in, they're just going to die. They're going to die before they really get to attack because they have a bunch of extra power to them, being able to strike first and so forth. And if, of course, the troop gets to charge themselves, it's pretty much game over for whatever they charge. So, I think that's still very viable. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of good things in here. I think we didn't really get hit that hard. I think our win rate's going to remain the same, and we're going to get to try out some new combos, which is always good. I always love internal balance, and GW, they didn't do everything to change internal balance. I think there's obviously still some, well, kind of not good units in the index for the Eldar. There's definitely some losers in here, but that's fine. Most of them are still remained unchanged. Fire dragons, again, remain unchanged. Anyway, all right, I think that's going to be it for the review. I'm going to come out with more videos later this week discussing this in detail and what I think competitive lists might start looking like. I did unfortunately, for some reason, that video I did on how to win a tournament as the Eldari is still not downloading. But the good news is now that because of this new data sheet, I think some of that might change. I might change some of that stuff up anyway. So expect that video out somewhat soon. And, we'll talk about some other things, Howling Banshees, Guardian Defenders, Striking Scorpions, stuff like that as well. So stay tuned. If you guys have any other ideas for videos, let me know. I am a Amazon affiliate, and I do have a channel store page. So if you want to support the channel via Amazon by buying some discounted Eldar miniatures via my affiliate link in the description, you can do that. Or if you want to grab some, Eldar inspired apparel on the channel store page, looks pretty cool, rep your Eldar pride, then I'll leave that link in the description as well. Last thing, I do want to thank all my patrons and supporters who have supported the channel over the last year and a half. We're growing pretty fast as a channel, and that's because of you guys and just the amount of community we've been able to build on this channel for Eldar players and enthusiasts has been awesome. So thank you. If you do want to become a part of the community and help support, I do have Patreon free trials activated, which will grant you a permanent access to our Discord community. And, we'd love to talk about Eldar strategies and tactics and all sorts of Eldar related stuff on there. So you can definitely join in on the fun. We'd love to have you. And I will leave the link for that in the description below. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and peace out. Glory to the Eldari, everybody. See you later.